Actually, Labor might try to form a government from here, when last year, in much the same position, they declined to.
Thank you, Casey. We were about to go to the big board, but we're now having a discussion. It's thrown me somewhat.
Cassie, I was keen to come to you before. You were itching to make a point.
Oh, thanks, Sabra. I was just in response to Airlie's question. It's not that the stadium wasn't well communicated. People got it. You know, they understood that the AFL dictated the terms. They understand it's unaffordable. They understand that when Jeremy Rockliff said on the first campaign day of the last state election, $375 million in state funds and not 1 red cent more, that turned out to be a complete lie. I mean, broadly, the electorate's very sensible. Well, it is a lie, Eric.
No,
you know it's a lie.
No.
Well, the latest assessment of the numbers from the Planning Commission is it's going to cost about $1.8 billion, and you know very well the state has to make up any shortfall there, and I'll tell you what, Tasmanians know that well too. And the reason that we have a planning commission is so that we have an integrated, independent assessment of all the risks. The bill that Eric has put before the Parliament gives him all power over the permit, its conditions. I mean, this is an extraordinary piece of legislation, and the power in it sits with the minister sitting over there. That's why he's so keen on it.
And part of the legislation requires me to act in good faith.
I'm sure you'll do that all the time.
Something that Vicar Bailey and the Greens refuse to acknowledge in their public discussion.
I think it's actually a real shame that something that should have been a really exciting moment for Tasmania has turned into this. And I think that's happened for a number of reasons. If you want to build a big infrastructure project like this, there are ways you can do it by bringing the community along with you. And we didn't see that from the Premier. We saw what was presented was a plan where he completely undersold the impact on the budget. He completely oversold the benefits, both to a degree that was unbelievable. Instead of just being upfront and transparent and saying, OK, we know this is going to have an impact, but there will be benefits that are delivered. This is what we need to get a team. Let's work a way forward. Let's work out a plan to move forward with it. But we've ended up with this position, and I know Cassie will disagree with me on this, where we've got people, one side very strongly against it, one side very strongly for it. The majority of people that I speak to are somewhere in the middle. It is not the biggest issue for the majority of people. And the people that are opposed to it, a lot of them, that's in relation to, it links to concern about other services. So it's not even necessarily about the stadium. It's about the fact that they can't access healthcare or they're worried about their kids at school. It's just such a shame that it has become this completely polarising issue. And I hear that from people on the doors, even within their own families, when it could have been something that actually was an exciting thing for Tasmania and delivered some great outcomes.
Yeah, but you forget, 15 months ago, you were opposed it.
Just hang on, Eric Abetz. We have seen the numbers on the floor of the chamber. Let's have a look at what that means for the faces in Parliament. Selena Bryan has the latest on the big board.
Yes, Guy, we just wanted to quickly run you through some of the new faces that we're seeing in this Parliament. So in Braddon and Bass, the Liberal Party has got in those two former federal MP candidates, Bridget Archer in Bass and Gavin Pearce in Braddon. Then, interestingly, in Clark, Marcus Vermey has been elected ahead of the two sitting Liberal MPs who are now vying for that last seat. So one of them will lose their seat. In Franklin, Peter George is a new face as well. The independent who did very well in the federal election has now been successful in the state parliament. And in Lyons, Labor may also have success with a former federal MP in Brian Mitchell. So 5 new faces so far and potentially some more to come. We'll see how those results play out.
Selena Bryan, thank you. Well, we are expecting the Greens leader, Rosalie Woodruff, in the next few minutes. Eric Abetz, do you get nervous when you look at that chamber over there and you see Labor 10, Greens 5? Jeremy Rockliff's claimed victory, but if Labor and the Greens actually do end up doing a deal, as they've denied for years, they could actually control the floor of the House, particularly with left-leaning crossbench.
Look, it would be a perverse outcome if Labor, on their lowest historic vote ever, were to form government with the Greens, something they promised not to do, if they would have gone to this election saying, we will do a deal with the Greens to get into government, their vote would have been even lower than it is this evening. So Labor will sign their own death warrant.
Here now is the Greens leader, Rosalie Woodruff.
Fantastic to be here. I want to start by acknowledging that Lutruwita, Tasmania's first people, the Palawa Pakana, who have shaped this island's landscape for tens of thousands of years. The Palawa never ceded this island to colonisers. Their land was taken in a violent dispossession. I also want to recognise a treaty was promised 2 centuries ago by the colonial administration that was never progressed. That promise was made again recently, and once again it was walked away from. The Greens are committed to returning lands, to truth-telling and to treaty. And I also want to recognise at this point in time the genocide that's occurring in Palestine. And the Greens stand. The Greens stand with the people of Palestine for freedom, for peace and for return of their lands. Well, what a midwinter roller coaster this last 5 weeks have been. Democracy is always something to celebrate, but even so, we acknowledge this election wasn't what anyone wanted. Both major party leaders had options to avoid it, but here we are. And democracy is a beautiful thing, and on behalf of the Greens, I want to give a shout out to all the people who had the courage to stand for election. Every person that puts their hand up plays a part in our democracy. And I want to acknowledge Jeremy and Dean's work on this campaign. Elections are gruelling for everyone, especially for leaders in their family. And this campaign has been like no other I've ever been part of. A bitterly cold campaign held over the school holidays immediately on the tail of recent elections wouldn't have been anyone's wish. But the Greens did what we could to bring energy and fun to our campaign. And despite the challenges of a snap election, this has been one of the biggest campaigns that the Tasmanian Greens has ever held. While it might all look like simple politics on the outside, elections are truly made up of individual people who are driven by values. And they're made up of all the people here and across this island. They're committed to change, people who are willing to give up their time to fight for it. And we heard it on the doors every day. Tasmanians are crying out for change. They look at our state and see serious issues. People can't find a home and can't afford the basics. They're struggling to get by day to day, forced to make impossible choices about which bill to pay or if they can afford to run their heater on freezing nights. And when you call an ambulance in Tasmania, you're waiting longer than anywhere else in the country. Urgent surgeries are overdue. Our coastlines, our waterways are polluted, our forests are being destroyed every day in the pursuit of a quick buck, but at the expense of what makes this island unique and special on Earth. And on top of it all, the budget is in a complete disrepair. And instead of tackling these crippling real issues, both the Liberals and Labor want to spend more than $1 billion on building the state a third stadium. In time of such need, yeah, it is a shame. In time of such need, it's heartbreakingly out of touch. And that's been the approach for major party politicians. But the Greens are putting our community's needs and the environment first. It's about policies that will make Tasmania a better place now and into the future. It's keeping public assets in public hands and protecting public services from being cut. It's a health system that gives the care that's needed when it's needed, instead of grinding workers into the ground hour by understaffed hour. It's cleaning up fish farms, protecting our coastline, ensuring a healthy marine environment and saving the Maugean from extinction. It's public schools that are free for everyone and that have the resources they need. It's strong environmental laws and a truly independent EPA. It's action on climate change. It's catching up to the rest of the country and giving renters real rights and bringing the thousands of houses lost to Airbnb back to being homes for Tasmanians. It's an end to native forest logging. And protecting our biodiverse, carbon-storing forests. It's improving the rights, conditions and pay for workers. It's making big corporations pay their fair share so we can keep delivering and improving the services that all Tasmanians rely on. It's about making sure the years spent on the Commission of Inquiry and all the pain and sacrifice made by victim survivors and whistleblowers are not in vain. That we close Ashley, that we implement all the critically important reforms needed to protect children. And it's about building homes and health facilities, not building a stadium. So as everyone predicted, things aren't entirely cut and dried tonight, but things are looking very good for the Greens. We will keep watching the votes and preferences flow over the next couple of weeks, but at this point, I'm so happy to say we've held our 5 seats, and I'm so proud that I'll be returning to Parliament with Cecily Russell, Tabitha Badger, Vicar Bailey and Helen Burnett. It's not over yet in Braddon. We're not out of the hunt, and I'm crossing my fingers for Vanessa Blyer, a terrific candidate, and I want to give a huge shout out to all the people, all of our volunteers who've worked so hard in Braddon and who are watching this tonight. The Greens are more than a 4 decades old grassroots movement that doesn't take money from big corporations. We ran a truly grassroots campaign across the island this election, and I want to thank everyone involved, our fantastic support candidates, our committed, energetic volunteers who helped us have thousands of conversations with people on the doors, who showed up at 6 a.m. and donned a greenie beanie to wobbleboard on dark, freezing mornings, who gave up their weekends to door knock and make calls to voters. And of course, the 650 generous people who donated to the Greens campaign. We couldn't have done it without you. To our campaign team, the party director Gemma Kitsos, party convener Damien Irving, and our terrifically capable party managers Deb Rees and Caitlin Barlow-Groom, and all the other special people who helped run things so smoothly and make it all work. A special thanks to our friends across the ditch, the 4 Victorians who jumped on a plane at short notice. You know who you are and you wove magic for us. Thank you. My parliamentary staff who have been critical to our energetic organising: Alice, Tom, Steve, Dan, Rachel, Ellen, Alex and Sam. Your integrity and commitment to driving positive change is inspiring. Along with our electorate advisor team, we couldn't have done a snap election without your smarts, your sass and jokes, and your can-do everyday attitude. I want to thank my family, Paulie, May, Tilda, and in absentia, our dog Ziggy, who's the Greens campaign mascot. You all helped make this possible, and we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. So Tasmanians have rejected majority government again. People have seen how broken politics gets when major party politicians put the profits of big corporations and vested interests over the needs of the community. In conversation after conversation this election, people voiced their dispirited frustration, their great desire to have elected representatives who focus on solutions for the serious issues of the day and into the future. Everyone elected owes it to the community to deliver on the message that they've sent, and that means recognising differences of views in Parliament, finding out what unites us and how we can collaborate in the best interests of the people of Tasmania. Finally, I have a message for Dean Winter. After last year's election, Labor decided not to even try to form government with the Greens. After your successful no confidence motion last month, you didn't take up our offer of a conversation about working together to avoid this election. Now Tasmanians have chosen the next Parliament. This conversation needs to be had. Representing our communities is not a game. It's about working together to make positive change. Yes, there are differences, but the Greens and Labor have a lot in common too. We are ready. We are ready to work collaboratively in the best interests of Tasmanians. And Dean, I hope you put them first this time too. So in closing, on behalf of the Greens and all you good people here, I want to make the same commitment to Tasmanians that we made every day during the campaign. Whatever happens next, we are going to go back into the Parliament and we are going to do everything we can to work towards a better future for this beautiful island, Lutruwita, Tasmania. Thank you all.
Greens leader Dr Rosalie Woodruff making her way off the stage with her family.
Very hard to fight on the issues that we campaigned on, absolutely on the stadium. That is going to be the top line issue, the stadium, investing money in health and housing and protecting the environment. As I said in this speech, that is our number one priority.
You talked a lot about Labor, but will you work with the Liberals?
Well, we've seen such a progressive Parliament that has been elected already, and the vote's not finished. The vote's not finished, and so we feel very hopeful about the future.
Well, what guarantees do you offer that we don't end up here again in a year's time?
Well, we give the guarantees that the Greens will work in good faith with the people who have been elected in Parliament, just like we did in the last Parliament. We are going to be working hard to get outcomes for Tasmanians.
Labor's vote went down. Can they credibly form government?
It's about who can form a group of people to work in the best interests of Tasmania. Obviously, a lot of conversations have to be had, and I look forward to having that. And we still don't know who's been elected to Parliament.
Have you had any conversation?
Adam Langenberg there interviewing Dr Rosalie Woodruff after she spoke to the tally room there. Coming to you first, Cassie O'Connor, your leader. She says Dean Winter needs to have a conversation with her about potentially forming a new government.
Well, he does. I mean, Dean Winter needs to take responsibility. He brought us to this point. This is Dean Winter's election. The Liberals have not won a majority. It's pretty clear that Tasmanians are not satisfied with either of the major parties, and Tasmanians want change. We cannot have another 3 or 4 years of the same direction.
Can you realistically say Tasmanians want change when essentially what we see tonight is a vote for the status quo? Well, exactly the same 5 members of the Greens. The only difference seems to be the shuffling of the deck chairs. Labor has replaced Labor members, Liberal is replacing Liberal members.
Well, I think at the last election, Tasmanians wanted change, and I think they want it again. They don't want more of the same. And isn't it a shame that someone like Rosalie, of her great talent and courage, can't actually be the Premier of Tasmania because she leaves Dean Winter and Jeremy Rockliff in the shade. But that said, it really is up to Dean now if he is to have the courage of his convictions. All those things he said when he moved no confidence about the need for a change of direction, the things that Tasmanians are missing out on, the misplaced priorities of the Liberal government. If Dean Winter is going to put the people of Tasmania he's expressed such concern for first, he needs to pick up the phone.
Sarah Lovell? Will Dean Winter pick up the phone and talk to Rosalie Woodruff?
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations that happen over the next few days and indeed maybe weeks as we wait to see who fills those final seats. But yes, we've said all along, well, we've said certainly in this last week and throughout this campaign that we will respect the parliament that is elected and we will work with whoever is elected on the crossbench. So,
Rosalie Woodruff said there are differences, but the Greens and Labor have a lot in common too. What are the potential differences that could prevent this union from happening?
well, I think there's lots of differences between Labor and the Green. There are some Greens. There are obviously some issues that we're going to struggle to compromise on, being, support for some of our traditional industries. The stadium is another example. But there would be equal numbers of issues that Labor and Liberal have in common, or that Liberal and the Greens have in common. There's no real we disagree with you on everything or we agree with you on everything. There are a range of issues, and all of those issues need to be considered on their merit, which is actually how Parliament operates most of the time.
All right. Now, Casey Briggs, you've got an update for us on the touchscreen.
Yeah, two quick things. Just to note, in Lions, we're starting to get some pre-poll votes in. The Shooter Fishers Farmers candidate has dropped back just a little bit. They are dropping back a little bit, though, on the pre-polls. We're leaving this one in doubt. We're not going to resolve this one today. They remain best placed, but not guaranteed to win that one. The seat in Bass, there are multiple candidates going for one seat there. We're just going to leave that one in doubt. But we should remember we've got broadly similar numbers appearing in the next Parliament as the last one, but a different set of people. So maybe we should just remind ourselves who those new people are, because the conversations might change depending on who is involved in those conversations. We've got 3 new Liberal members of Parliament, Bridget Archer and Gavin Pearce. The federal members for the northern seats, they have entered Parliament. It's not clear if they're displacing. In fact, we know in Braddon, Gavin Pearce is an addition, not replacing someone else. Less clear in Bass. Simon Wood still at risk, but in with a shot potentially. Marcus Vermey in Clark is replacing either Simon Barakis or Madeline Ogilvie. Peter George is a new crossbencher that both major parties are going to have to work out how to deal with and how to talk to and negotiate with. We've got some defeated members, 3 defeated members, the 3 ex-Jackie Lambie network members, so that is a significant change in this Parliament. Rebecca Pentland, Miriam Beswick and Andrew Jenner have all been defeated, and quite a long list of potential members. Within a lot of the electorates, we know the party breakdown, but not necessarily the people that will fill those seats just yet. Jess Green and Jeff Lyons are competing for a Labor seat in Bass. We've got Felix Ellis and Roger Yench. Actually, I think they're both probably elected at this point. We should probably go change that in our system. Shane Broad is a possible in Braddon. As I said, Madeline Ogilvie or Simon Barakis. One of those will win in Clark. That's just Dean Winter. The announcement of Dean Winter will come and speak to the tally room in about 10 minutes. So I'll talk for less time than that. In Franklin, David O'Byrne is a possible, on track for re-election, but not quite fully over the line just yet. Jackie Petrusma and Nick Street. The Liberals are at serious risk of falling back one there, so one of those 2 may well be defeated. In Franklin as well, it's not quite clear who the second Labor member will be, Meg Brown or Jess Munday. Brian Mitchell, a potential in Lions, and as we've been talking about, that potential Shooters, Fishers, Farmers candidate, Carlo DeFalco, may well be a member of the next Parliament. So there are new faces. This is a different Parliament. The numbers are the same, but relationships matter in Parliaments of 35, in minorities. The relationships between MPs are an important factor in making this Parliament work, and there are going to be new faces in it.
Thank you, Casey. Erica Betts. The speculation all night has been about Labor and the Greens. We've heard it now directly from Rosalie Woodruff, the leader of the Greens' mouth. She's imploring Dean Winter, pick up the phone, let's do a deal.
Well, of course she is, and that is something that Dean Winter has ruled out, and therefore one would expect that he won't. But interestingly enough, in Franklin, I've just had a look at the figures. Rosalie Woodruff has had a swing against her of 4%, and the Greens have had a swing against them of 6%. in Franklin.
With a massive uptick from Peter George.
Labor have had a decrease in their vote of 4.6%, and the Liberals have had a decrease of 0.0. In other words, no decrease. So I think what that's telling you is that the Liberal vote is either stable or increased, and in those circumstances, how on earth can Dean Winter pretend that he can lead a government when in his own electorate David O'Byrne has outpolled him, and I never thought this would be the result this evening, but after Peter George I've come in second on number 1 votes, above the Leader of the Opposition and the Leader of the Greens. I would have thought that should be telling both of those leaders that they've got substantial issues within their own electorate and with the people of Tasmania, and it would be such a perverse result if those two were to come together to form a government.
I'm hearing groans down the other end of the desk.
She doesn't like the results.
Well, it's just ridiculous. I mean, Franklin was a particular electorate that had a strong independent who'd run in the federal...
number of strong independents.
Yeah, a number of strong independents, but we're just talking about the impact on Rosalie's vote, who'd run in the federal election, had a high profile. We always knew that was going to bite into our vote in Franklin. But that's a very strong re-endorsement of Rosalie in Franklin because she's a very good local member. So you can spin it any way you like, Eric. Around the state, we've done very well. And we've earned it.
If you think minus 6% is a good result, I'm happy to join with you on that.
Well, at the moment, Erica Betts, we are looking at status quo, potentially, with all parties.
Look, with a Hare-Clark system, that often happens, that there's a reduction in vote or an increase in vote, but it doesn't change the actual numbers in the parliament. I accept that, but I think it is very informative to have a look at the percentage vote, and the one party that has had a considerable lift in its vote has been the Liberal Party. Labor, historic low, and the Greens basically level pegging. The only party that's really lifted has been the Liberals under the leadership of Jeremy Rockcliffe that they personally attacked.
Sarah Lovell.
Sorry for thinking you finished that sentence 30 seconds ago.
I think I prefer the finger rather than the pen.
That was a bit close.
Ellie Ward, you have a question.
Sarah Lovell, I'd like to pick up on a comment that Cassie O'Connor made when she described Dean Winter as somewhat shut off. Is he the right person to have those conversations, if those conversations are to be had between the Labor Party and the Greens?
Well, Dean's the leader of the Labor Party, so
at the moment
it will be Dean having those conversations. I mean, I can't speak to Cassie's experience with Dean. My experience with Dean is not that he's shut off at all, and in fact, I found Dean to be an incredibly open leader and someone who is genuinely wanting to hear from his team all kinds of things. He comes to us often to ask us for our opinion on things. He's very collaborative. I've certainly gone to him with things, and he's always been very open to that. So
that's inside the party, but we also heard from David O'Byrne that there wasn't the olive branch from David O'Byrne.
I think that there's a lot of history there that probably relates to that, but there was no olive branch from David extended towards Labor or towards Dean either, so that goes both ways. My experience with Dean is that he's been very collaborative and very open to working with people, and I have every confidence that he'll be able to have those conversations.
Is it right? Sorry, yeah, go on.
I mean, so will there be a reflection now about the strategic decisions that led us to this point, to a party potentially falling back a seat or in exactly the same place? I mean, has this raised questions about Dean Winter's strategic judgment in launching that no confidence motion?
We've reflected on that all the way through the campaign, and we will reflect on the campaign like we do every time. The bottom line is we had no option. We were faced with the worst budget in Tasmania's history. We were faced with a plan to sell off Tasmania's assets and government-owned businesses. Our choice was to support that and let that happen, or to do what we did and try and give the option to the Liberal Party of a reset. They chose not to take that option. They chose to go with going to an election. That was their right to do that. But we had no choice, and we have reflected on that, and we stand by that.
You could have tried to form government from 10 seats. When the governor initially told Jeremy Rockliff, "Go away, I'll get back to you at the end of the week," that was also a moment to try and form government. Should you have tried then?
No. If we'd tried to form government at that point, there's no credibility behind that. That was a very different crossbench. It was, the Parliament was already starting to fall apart. We had members who were elected as Jackie Lambie Network members who were no longer within months of the election. The Parliament was not, I don't think that Parliament was ever going to last a full term.
So you're looking at this Parliament, you think it's a better group of crossbenchers to try and form government?
I think what we've got now is a very strong message from the community that this is the Parliament they want us to work with. That they know they know the risks of a minority Parliament, they know what a minority Parliament can deliver, and they want us to give it a go.
Erica Betts, whose votes can you swing from this crossbench? Like, everybody's trying to put names in columns. Whose votes can you swing? Who will come out and say, "I'll support Team Blue"?
I would have thought a genuine independent would ask themselves a few fundamental questions. Who's got the most seats? Who got the most votes from the Tasmanian public? Which party saw a reduction in their vote? Which party saw an increase in their vote? And on all those metrics, in fairness, if you're a true independent, if you're a true independent, surely you'd be backing in the party with the most votes.
I think Casey Briggs can help us on that. With we're talking about the independent vote.
Yeah, I might just pitch in on the topic of the third party, the minor party, the independent vote, and make a couple of observations. So if you look at the statewide vote, the Liberals are up 3.1, Labor's down 3.2. So the major party combined vote is roughly steady on a statewide basis. There are differences in different seats. The major party vote is up in Bass and Braddon because the Liberal Party vote has increased. There are no Jackie Lambie Network candidates this time, and there were fewer independents on offer, fewer credible-seeming independents on offer for voters to vote for. The independent and minor party vote has gone up in the other seats, in Clark, in Franklin, in Lyons, where there have been more options available to voters. So we've been looking at this trend away from the major parties that's happening nationally, it's happening globally. It's been happening in Tasmania. Now, it hasn't happened in this election. I do wonder if one of the reasons is the snap election has caught people by surprise. It has meant people that might have run were not ready to run for this in this election. There were fewer independent groups on the ballot this time around. Where there have been more of them, they have attracted some more votes, and we've seen, in some cases. Why don't I just bring up Clark, for example. Look at the change in vote in Clark. There's not a whole lot of change there. Christy Johnston's up 8 percentage points. Wow. Elise Archer hasn't done all that well. She's just on 3%, so she's not been elected. But there are people flocking towards some of those candidates where they see them as serious and credible. Yeah,
but the other vote went down by 11. You add 2.9 gives you 11, doesn't it?
We're talking about small changes in primary votes here. This is an election since last year. Yeah. There are no radical shifts here. This is an incremental thing that's been happening over time. We can have a look at Franklin as well. Peter George, 17.6 percentage points. David O'Byrne has improved his vote as well, and so we've seen a big lift in the minor party, the others vote there, that we haven't seen in the north of the state. So I wonder if the reason the circumstances under which this election has come about has been a factor in that.
David O'Byrne's vote, they're up 2.5. Are we getting close to calling David O'Byrne?
I think at this point we are. Let me have another look. I haven't looked at this one in a while. We think David O'Byrne's probably elected. There is a little bit of uncertainty around Peter George's surplus, around whether the Liberal Party can hold on for a third. We are thinking at this point that it is likely two Liberal, two Labor, Peter George, Greens, David O'Byrne. That's the most likely outcome here. But there's a few variables.
All right, we are waiting for the Labor leader, Dean Winter, who's expected in just a few minutes to come into the tally room.
Just prior to that, Guy, I was just wouldn't mind picking up with Erica Betts one of the comments that Rosalie Woodruff made and Sarah, you've made, that, on the doors, with people not being able to afford the basics, that, you know, leaving the stadium and those big picture things aside, that there are a lot of people in the community who are really struggling. I mean, yesterday I walked 2 blocks and I saw 2 homeless tents set up. A caller to you, Leon, yesterday said the reason that she voted early was to save on petrol money, that she had to go into town and that it was she couldn't afford
2 trips.
She couldn't afford 2 trips. That is a really big issue confronting whoever forms government, doesn't it?
Look, there's no doubt the cost of living has been an issue in the federal and state elections. People are hurting. There's no doubt about that.
Dean Winter is now coming into the tally room.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today, acknowledge their elders past and present. Friends, elections can be tough and everything has to be put into perspective. Early in this election campaign, our community felt the grief when we lost Constable Keith Smith. In Ulverston, you could feel the community mourning. It felt like the bottom had fallen out of our state, and it felt like we were all part of that loss. And I've had tough days on this job, and my family, like most families though, always knows that no matter what happens in my workplace, I'll always come home safe. For Janaea and Ava, Keith's family, that didn't happen, and we're still thinking of them and Keith's police family. The Tasmania Police is an outstanding institution, and they were exemplary in the way that they commemorated that during the election campaign. I'd like to acknowledge tonight as well all of the candidates who've run and lost tonight. It is a huge undertaking to run for political office, to leave your job, to quit your job, to take on the opportunity to make Tasmania a better place. And no matter what party people stood for, or whether they stood for as an independent, I know that every party, every candidate stood to try and make Tasmania a better place. I'd also like to acknowledge Jeremy Rockcliffe and his family tonight. Again, politics can be tough, and I have fundamental and real concerns with the direction that this state is moving in. But I do know that Jeremy cares deeply, and he has been in Parliament now for longer than anyone, and his result in Braddon tonight in particular reflects his service. I'd like to thank my caucus and my Labor movement, in particular the 2 behind me, Anita Dow and Josh Willey, who've stood with me every step of the way, and our entire Labor caucus. I'd like to thank them for their loyalty and their friendship over the past year or so and through this election campaign. I'd like to thank our affiliated unions, who always stand side by side with Labor and our candidates, and who fought to build a better future for Tasmania. Tonight, the Tasmanian people have spoken, and they have delivered another hung parliament, and with it a resounding message that they want their politicians to work together more collaboratively. They are not happy with politics as usual, and they want to see things done differently. And the Premier's speech early tonight showed some of the same approach that he took on election night some 16 months ago, and we know that has not worked. That's not what Tasmanians have just voted for. Tasmanians have voted for a parliament that represents a diverse range of views, one that appears highly likely to be progressive in majority. And it is incumbent upon all of us, to respect the will of the people and to make this new parliament work in the best interest of Tasmania. Whoever forms the next government will need to develop a new approach to politics in this state. One where genuine collaboration and willingness to work together and an ability to put aside differences as the order of every single day. I've listened to Tasmanians' verdict tonight, and I understand that they are deeply dissatisfied with the way our parliament has worked, and they want a change of approach. The result of this election is that the Liberals will have the most seats, but it is uncertain as to how they will achieve a majority. I have enough respect for Tasmanians to be upfront and honest about that. I won't be going back, though, on what I've committed to. Labor does stand for safe, secure, well-paid jobs. And I want to be clear that I'm not going to be trading away any of Labor's policies or any of our values. If the Liberals are unable to form a government, another election is not an option. But fundamentally, what Tasmanians have asked us to do is collaborate on the big challenges that face our state, and there are many. Our budget is in crisis, and I can't stress this more firmly to Tasmanians. There is a budget crisis in this state. And there are too many Tasmanians that can't get in to see a GP, and they can't afford it if they can. Our housing waiting list has doubled while new builds are at some of the lowest levels they've been in for many years. And more young Tasmanians are leaving the state than we have seen ever before. And Tasmanians are telling us that they want us to treat each other with respect and commit to working together for the next 4 years. But however the coming days play out, Tasmanians can be assured that I've heard the message that they've sent, and I will play my part in making this parliament work in the best interests of our state. It seems likely that the three major parties in the state will end up with more or less the same number of seats as they did in the last parliament. Another election is not an option, which means we need to figure this out. This will take leadership, it will take maturity, and it will take a willingness to work and seek common ground. Whoever forms government after this election, I commit to that being my approach going forward. Finally, we had our campaign launch on Sunday, and I forgot to thank someone very special. My wife, Alison. And I have to say, something I agreed with Jeremy very strongly on is the impact that this has on families. It has just as much impact on families as it does yourself. I did plan for my kids to come out with us tonight, but they're asleep, and so they're not here. But they start feeling it, the family starts feeling it. I know our whole Labor family feels the pressure of an election. The thanks goes to you, to my family and to my Labor family and to our union affiliates for all of your help and support. Tonight's result didn't go as well as I wanted to, but I commit to continuing to work with you, our Labor friends, to fight for a Labor government that delivers a Labor agenda for our state. Thank you.
Form government with 10 seats.
Dean, could you rule out doing any sort of agreement with the Greens at this stage?
Trying valiantly there to get an answer. We did not hear, interestingly, Dean Winter concede at all. Sarah Lovell.
Yeah, look, that was exactly what I expected to hear from Dean tonight, and I think it's really consistent with what he's been saying this week and consistent with the results that we've seen tonight. The Liberal government have not won a majority of the seats. We are in a new world order in politics in Tasmania, and it's something that we all need to figure out how we're going to work our way forward. It's not a concession in the same way that Jeremy Rockliff's speech shouldn't have been a victory speech, because there is no clear winner or loser here. There is a parliament of people that's been elected that needs to figure out a way forward from here, and they're the conversations that will need to take place over the coming days.
He did mention a majority. He said that progressive MPs will be in the majority.
Yeah, and I think that's reflected in the results we're seeing tonight as well. The majority of members of parliament are very much more on the progressive side than they are on the conservative side. So I think that, it comes back to that two-party preferred result. Those progressive independents and a progressive crossbench, you would suspect, are going to be much more difficult for a Conservative government to get the support of.
That's a warning shot across your bow, isn't it, Erica Betts?
Look, once again, if you call yourself an independent, you've got to look at the objective evidence. The highest vote of any political party, an actual increase, whereas the others have gone either backwards substantially or stabilised, so no advances there. The most seats, it really is, I think, a perverse outcome if Labor and the Greens, two leaders that have overseen their party go backwards in their electorate, to then sort of claim victory.
Well,
you have said this before, but clearly what you're interpreting from what Dean Winter has said is that he will attempt to form a government if he can.
After having promised and garnered the lowest vote ever in Labor history in Tasmania, having garnered that lowest vote, on the basis that he wouldn't do a deal with the Greens, can I tell you, I have no doubt if he would have gone to this election saying what he did just then, the Labor vote would have been even lower. Unthinkable that might be, but it would have been even lower.
Eric, notwithstanding all of that, I'm getting texts from Liberal-aligned people who are saying their expectation is that Dean Winter will be successful in forming government. I mean, given that possibility, would it not have been better for your party to have tried to find a different premier rather than find themselves where we end up with this uncertainty tonight?
Look, we can try and rewrite history, but the Parliament was about to knock off the Deputy Premier, so he resigned. Then the same Parliament decided that it'd have a crack at the top dog, namely the Premier, and you cannot run a government or a parliament where the individual parliamentarians determine who the deputy and the premier are going to be, who's going to be in the ministry, in or out.
But you should have, that was
whoever would have become the new premier under the scenario would have faced a similar fate in 3 months if you were lucky.
Again, you can't say that, but it looks like you may have strategically chosen a path that leads you to opposition.
Well, the people of Tasmania have backed us in with an increased vote from 2014. The person that brought on this vote has suffered a huge loss for his party, having said no confidence and run a just continual stream of negativity. And what's he seen? His party's vote go down and the Liberal Party's vote go up.
Your party's vote went down 12% last election and you still formed government.
Yeah, from a very high base, and we have recovered and you've gone backwards.
But it didn't work, did it?
But Eric, you don't have a majority. I mean, you are talking as if there's an assumption that you're entitled to the government benches. You do not have a majority.
And Cassie, you are saying exactly the same.
And I might say, you don't have a plan. You don't have a real plan to fix the budget. You really don't. You're handing us... Why? How could you?
Cassie,
the Treasury was let off the leash in the caretaker period. The Treasury, when they weren't being run by a treasurer in the caretaker period, made it really clear that on the trajectory government is on under your people, we'll have $13 billion of net debt within 3 years.
Without any intervention by the government, which we have insisted. So when we said, for example, that we would right-size the public service, Labor, the Greens and the trade union movement campaigned against us on reducing and making savings. So whenever we said we wanted to make a saving, Labor and the Greens opposed us. So that's why Labor could not and did not deliver an alternate budget. They have no plan, they have no leader, and they have no pathway to
Can we get some
certainty.
clarity? Can Jeremy Rockcliffe, he says it's his intention to go and see the governor. How quickly do you expect that would be? And you would expect the governor might ask you, the premier, to see if he can confidently lead a minority parliament?
Yeah, first of all, in that scenario, we have to wait and see who the other independents are, and then it's a question of what those independents do. But I think, as I said before, they are morally obliged to look at the vote, see the decrease in the Labor vote, and if they're truly independent, how can they turn around and say, yeah, despite what the people have said about Labor, we're going to make the bloke that forced this unnecessary election on us without an alternate budget plan, who got the lowest vote in history, and we're going to make him Premier. How's that going to work in any independent's mind?
Sarah Lovell, can Labor cobble together a government with the independents? We don't know all the independents that possibly are going to sit on those benches. Might that be a possibility, a strong possibility?
I certainly think it's something we should try, because, and until we know who's sitting on those benches, obviously there are conversations that will need to happen. But when you look at the vote, you look at that two-party preferred result, you look at the internal polling that showed that only 35% of Tasmanians thought the Liberal government deserved to be re-elected. You look at the swing against them last time, and you look at the way they have not been able to make minority government work twice now. We can't go to another early election. I can't see a pathway for Jeremy Rockliff to gain confidence on the floor of Parliament. I think if we're going to respect the will of Tasmanians, we have no choice. It's incumbent on all of us to try and make this work.
Well, let's see what the pathways are for both Liberal and Labor. Selena Bryan is at the big board.
So we're just going to take a look at where the big board is at the moment, as we're getting quite close to the end of the night here. So in Bass, the Liberal Party has 3 seats, Labor 2 and the Greens 1. That 7th seat in Bass is looking likely between the Greens and the Liberals at the moment, with the Liberals slightly ahead there. In Braddon, the Liberals have 4 seats, Labor 1 and Craig Garland 1 as an independent. Labor's looking likely of picking up that 7th seat there. In Clark, 2 seats for the Liberals, 2 seats for Labor, 2 for the Greens, and Christy Johnston has been returned as an independent too. In Franklin, 2 for the Liberals, 1 for Labor with the Labor leader Dean Winter, the Greens leader Rosalie Woodruff, and Peter George has entered Parliament as an independent. On those 2 last seats, it's a bit of a 3-way tussle, but at the moment it's looking more likely to go to the other independent, David O'Byrne, the sitting member there, and to Labor. But the Liberals are still in contention. In Lyons, the Liberals have got 3 seats, 2 for Labor and 1 for the Greens. For now, the Shooters and Farmers Fishers candidate is in front, although we can't guarantee where that will go tonight, so that could still be either Labor or the Liberals. If we switch now to our pathway to power graphic, we've got the Liberals on 14 seats that they came into this election with, and Labor on 9. Now, if we move across some of those boxes that we were just looking at, the undecided votes, if we moved Bass across to the Liberals where they're leading, and Braddon and Franklin down to the Labor side of the board, we can see where we're kind of likely to end up based on where the figures are at the moment. Those 2 remaining seats over there, as we said, they're likely to go at this stage to the crossbench. So David O'Byrne in Franklin and potentially the Shooters, Farmers and Fishers in their first seat in Tasmania's Parliament on the crossbench as well in Lyons. Now, they're more likely to support the Liberals, so if we moved them across to the Liberal side of the board too, David O'Byrne in Franklin supported the Liberal government with confidence and supply in that last term of Parliament as well. So we can see now they're only now 1 seat short of that yellow line that shows that they can form a minority government. If we look at who's left on the crossbench, Peter George, Christy Johnston and Craig Garland as the independents, and then the Greens 5 members as well. Now, Christy Johnston in the last term of Parliament offered supply to the government. She has said she won't do deals, she said she won't offer confidence, but she did offer supply, so there is potential for that to happen again. Now, this is, if those results do play out, how they're looking at the moment, that could be an option for the Liberals. But there are still plenty of results to come in, and then there is a lot more negotiation, no doubt, to come after that.
Selena Bryan, thank you. Very interesting on those potential paths. Sarah Lovell, your final thoughts?
Well, look, I don't think there's been any surprises tonight. I think largely the result is what most people were probably expecting. I'm yet to hear from Jeremy Rockcliffe how he plans, or even an acknowledgement that he needs to work with the crossbench in a way that he hasn't done before. But I said at the beginning of the night, and I say it again now, it all comes down to that crossbench, who sits on those benches, and the conversations that will play out over the coming days.
Eric Abetz, some final thoughts from you.
Look, I think the knives will be out for Dean Winter tomorrow.
Rubbish.
He brought this on and has seen a collapse in the Labor vote. Talking about no confidence, what a terrible job the Liberals were doing. Russia blood to the head. He thought that he could get some electoral support. In fact, the electorate has rejected Labor like never before in Tasmanian history. And Jeremy Rockcliffe has been endorsed with a swing towards him in his own electorate and likely to get that fourth seat in Braddon. What a huge endorsement for the sitting Premier, and I would have thought any independent-minded person would have to do the compare and contrast and realise that Jeremy Rockcliffe is the person and Dean Winter is genuinely yesterday's man.
Cassie O'Connor, is Dean Winter yesterday's man?
Well, no, I don't think so. And Jeremy Rockcliffe, to be fair, has been in Parliament for 23 years. And Dean Winter was the Mayor of Kingborough and by all accounts a good mayor and popular.
He's
only been in state Parliament for a short period of time. But let's acknowledge one of the things that happened tonight. We've got a likely crossbench of 10 that'll have the same number of seats as the official opposition. The election's over now, and no matter what form of government we have next, the problems are huge. We can't have more of the same rubbish politics playing. And to hear Dean Winter, it was so heartening to hear him talk about a different kind of politics. Well, if we can do that, if we can actually work right across the Parliament, we could have some real budget repair. We could invest in health and housing. We could take seriously something no one's talked about in this election campaign, which is accelerating climate change, and have a real plan to tackle climate change and keep our communities safe. The work starts now. And I don't know that Jeremy Rockcliffe was wise to come out and tout himself as the next Premier, because there's a fair bit to go until that point.
Ellie Ward, some final thoughts from you.
I think that the Governor is probably going to be brushing up on the Tasmanian Constitution. I don't envy her task. We certainly don't want to be here again in another 12 months' time. It's an expensive exercise. The last election was around $4 or $5 million. This one may be slightly less, on top of the dire state of Tasmania's finances. One of the first things, of course, that the next Parliament is going to have to do is to make sure that parliamentarians don't get a 22.5% pay rise, which was supposed to kick in at the start of this month.
Or do get it, as the case may be, Ali.
Exactly. So, yeah. But the final thing would be there has got to be better behaviour so we don't end up back here again.
Final thoughts from you, Leon Compton?
I just wanted to tie into where I started at the beginning of the night. Whoever steps out into government now is stepping into a cyclone of activity and opportunity. We talked about the fiscal cliff, that if we're not over it, we're certainly really close. And I'm just trying to imagine whomever is governing in minority, how it will feel to need to start making the cuts and maybe increasing the taxes that it will have to take to get the budget back under control. It will have to do that, and it'll be with a fragile coalition. There are issues in health. There is, of course, a massive decision about Mariner Sky that needs to be made within weeks, with implications out over decades, a half a century or more, and smaller bits like how much we all pay in our power prices each and every month. So there's huge issues in front of whomever forms government, and as everybody's touching on, it'll take a lot of maturity to do that and see out a 4-year term.
Leon Compton, thank you. Casey Briggs, you got a final summary for us?
Yeah, I mean, an extraordinary election that's resulted in a chamber that looks very similar to the last one. So Tasmanians have had their say. It's now up to the Parliament to work out the rest of it. Well, let's just step through the figures one last time. The Liberal Party is within cooey of 40% of the statewide primary vote. Labor's vote has climbed a little bit to just short of 26% of the statewide vote. The Greens are on 14.2. The Nationals are down at 1.6. Not the result they would have been hoping for. The change in vote is a swing away from Labor on primary votes to the Liberal Party. The Greens are relatively steady at this point, and others just down by 2 percentage points. Remember, the Jackie Lambie network had 7% last time that didn't contest this election. Let's have a look at the chamber as it stands. We do have virtually everything that we're going to get tonight now. So let's have a look at where things are at. Liberal Party 14 seats, Labor 8, Greens 5, others 3. We've been talking about some seats which we're just waiting to firm up, but we're going to regard them as likely wins for one party or another, and that gets Labor to 10, the Greens 5, Liberals still on 14, and 4 others. So we've got both major parties sort of signalling an intention to at least attempt to form a government. One of the things that I'll just bring up right at the end that hasn't come up just yet, but one of the challenges for Jeremy Rockliff is Labor 10 voted for the no confidence motion. Greens 5 voted for the no confidence motion. Christy Johnston voted for the no confidence motion, has been re-elected. Craig Garland voted for the no confidence motion. So there's at least 17 votes in the next parliament that voted no confidence in the Premier not all that long ago. And now the Premier is going to be talking to some of those people, those 2 independents, I imagine in particular, to try and get back up to 18 seats. So that's another challenge here that makes things even more complicated. Have things changed substantively enough for the Liberal Party to see those crossbenchers that voted against them now vote for them? Let's have a look quickly at some of the new members of this Parliament. We have somewhat of a federal intervention in state politics now. Bridget Archer, one of the new members for Bass. Braddon sees Gavin Pearce, the former federal member, elected. Brian Mitchell is well placed to win a seat in Lyons as well. So that's 3 people who were in federal parliament a couple of months ago entering the state parliament. In Clark, Marcus Vermey has been elected. We've got a very strong showing from Peter George. He will enter state parliament. We've got some defeated members as well. The 3 that we are sure have been defeated are the 3 people that were elected with the Jackie Lambie network just 16 months ago. And a lot of potential members, including some where we know the party that's won a seat, but we don't necessarily know the individual, Jess Green or Jeff Lyons in Bass. In Braddon, we've got Felix Ellis and Roger Inch. They're both still potentials. The reason we've still got them as potentials is because they are favoured. Jeremy Rockliff has 2.5 quota in his own right. We're just wanting to see a little bit more from that, just to be sure that someone else isn't going to overtake one of these 2, but they are well placed to both be re-elected. One of these 2, Simon Barakas or Madeleine Ogilvie, will not be in the next Parliament. David O'Byrne is likely to be elected. We've got Jackie Petrusma and Nick Street competing probably for 1 seat. Outside chance both of them are re-elected. Meg Brown and Jess Munday competing for a seat in Franklin. As I said, Brian Mitchell is pretty well placed. And then we may well see a Shooters, Fishers, Farmers member of the House of Assembly in the next Parliament as well. So quite a lot of personnel change, even though the chamber, as we'll bring that one up just one more time, doesn't look all that different.
Thank you very much for that, Casey Briggs. And thank you to our panel tonight. Liberal, Mr Eric Abetz. Labor's Sarah Lovell, and from the Greens, Cassie O'Connor. That is Tasmania Votes.
The election was called just 16 months after the last one, prompted by a vote of no confidence in the Premier. Tonight, Jeremy Rockliff's Liberals have the most seats in Parliament, and he intends to go to the Governor and ask to be recommissioned. He also said it's important that the Parliament respects the will of the people.
Labor went into this election with 10 seats. It's ended the night with at least 8. Labor leader Dean Winter said the night didn't go as well as he wanted it to, but he didn't concede defeat either. Over the next few days, the count will continue and more seats will be decided and negotiations will get underway. You can stay up to date with abc.net.au/TasVotes and on radio and on TV.
Insiders will unpick the result from 9 a.m. tomorrow.
I'm Sabra Lane.
And I'm Guy Stainer. Good night from the Telly Room.
Good night.
We are off to see something that's not happened in decades.
Doctors are blowing the whistle on what went wrong.
This was probably not a great deal.